Hello, and welcome to the Perilicious Dish Hour with your host, Shaunie Deidre. My goal is to dish about all that's delicious and suspicious in the paranormal world, and occasionally we're going to go beyond that. We're going to take it on to another level. I want to introduce you to individuals that you know, those that you don't. Everyone in the paranormal world needs that exposure, and I am here to give it to them. I want to get started by sharing the way that you can tune in to my show. You can go to www.dtmwickedradio.com, click the show banner, and look for Perilicious, and you'll be carried to a button that says Listen and Chat. Click on that, and you're on your way. Okay, this evening, I want to put a name on the map. I want to put a name on your radar. Mr. Richard Peterson from Surrey, British Columbia, founder, lead investigator, and medium of SPIRIT, or Society of Paranormal Incident Research Investigation Team, is joining us. Hello, Rick.
Hey, Shaunie. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. 100%.
Great.
So, I have known you for a while via Facebook, and I just find you fascinating. I know you do psychic readings. I know you're an investigator. First of all, tell us a little bit about SPIRIT.
SPIRIT, yeah. I formed SPIRIT back in 2009, at the end of 2009. I had done some investigation work with local groups. Wanted to try and do things my own way. I find that everybody comes at doing investigations slightly differently, and what I felt was important was to use psychic ability in conjunction with the equipment, the scientific side of things, using your K2 meters and cameras and all the rest of that technology stuff. But what I found was that there was too much emphasis put on the equipment and not enough on what the medium was getting. And I've got a background. I used to be auxiliary with the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, locally here. And for me, I treat my cases with SPIRIT. I treat it much the same as you would treat a police file. So we have my spouse, Paula, who she's basically the intake coordinator for all the files that come in. She doesn't discuss the files with me. She basically has contact with the clients. But it keeps me very out of it so that I don't know any sort of case history going into it. I want to work cold so that the information I get is truly what I'm feeling as a medium versus having pre-knowledge of going into the case. So. And what I found was that when I was on investigations previously with other groups is that they would bring a medium in, and I'd be sitting there saying, okay, here's where the room where there's activity, this is what I was getting, and they'd be like, okay, great, well, we're going to go into this room with our, cameras and our recorders, and we're going to do investigations in this room. And to me, it made no sense. I viewed it much the same as if you had a bomb-sniffing dog or a drug-sniffing dog that was giving you a hit, and you say, well, that's great, but let's go look over here. So I basically wanted to do it that way. I wanted to bring in my abilities as sort of the forefront, and then my team members utilize all the equipment, and they work on the other end of things.
Wow, okay. How far do your investigations go? I mean, do you guys travel everywhere? Do you come down to the States to do investigations, or? No,
we've stayed local. We've had a fair number of cases locally that sort of keeps us going, and it also, being straight up honest, is it's budgetary and time constraints as well. I mean, since we don't charge for investigations, which pretty much is a standard in the we'll call it the industry. We don't charge the client for doing our services, so we have to work my team members' availability because nobody's getting any sort of remuneration for doing this. That basically we have to work it when they're not having to have their shift at work. Travel obviously is expensive. We're talking about hotel fees or flights or travel expenses. So we do stuff locally right now, and eventually we'll probably do some branching out and do some stuff a little farther outside of the Greater Vancouver area, and that's where Surrey is. Surrey is a suburb of Vancouver, British Columbia, up in Canada.
Wow. I don't hear your accent.
It's so funny that you say that.
I'm sure you hear mine, but I don't hear yours.
Yeah, I hear yours, but it was so funny because I filmed a sizzle reel for a TV show there a couple of years ago for Paranormal. And it was funny because the broadcasters, some of them really liked it, and some of them were concerned because they said, "Oh, he's got a Canadian accent." What?
No, I don't hear it. Well, I see you have you teach classes.
Yes.
Would you explain that level 1 development classes?
Yeah, I think that here's the deal. What I would say to every single one of us has the ability to do psychic work. It's no different than if I was to say to you, okay, Shaunie, draw me a picture of a house. You might be able to do a full 3D looking rendering of a house, or you might just simply draw a box with a triangle on the top to draw the roof in. But you can still convey the message. So that's your natural ability. And then what we do is how do we work with the natural ability and train it to become better? So you can take somebody who can only draw in stick format, and with enough training, they can start to do proper drawings or paintings. It's the same thing with psychic ability. Is really it comes down to understanding that it's all about energy. Mm-hmm. I come at things probably a lot differently than a lot of psychics do, is that I believe we have to bring science into the picture here so that the everyday person can understand what we're talking about. Otherwise, it has too much mysticism. It has too much air about it of, being mythical and mystical. And I like to remove all that because at the end of it all, as Albert Einstein said, energy can be neither created or destroyed. It merely changes form to it, from one form to another. So it's understanding that the energy. And so the first thing we learn in a development class is your grounding work, how to actually use a visualization in your mind to do grounding, which basically what that's doing is it's giving you a stable foundation that you're not off balance. And it gives you something to lock onto in the tangible. We then bring through white light energy, as a lot of people understand, bringing through white light protection. And it's basically what I say is that if we were to take a 2-prong power plug off of your lamp, if we were to cut one of those prongs off and then plug it into the wall, obviously the lamp isn't going to work because we don't have a completed circuit. So if you figure that when we're doing the grounding work, there's your ground lead. The energy coming through from spirit is your power lead. You now have a completed circuit. Okay, so I teach the students how to do this grounding, bringing through the white light, and then understanding the energy that they're feeling. When we're working in a group, typically my classes usually only have 6 to 8 people, and that's done with intention because when the groups get too large, it's too difficult to manage, and people lose focus. So I keep the groups sort of small, and then they can feel the energy, they can perceive it. And then we go on to doing feeling the energy between your hands. When you start to understand it, you'll feel that it's almost like 2 magnets of the same polarity repelling against each other. You'll feel that energy as you try to compact it. And then we go into doing geometry work and learning how to perceive the energy that an object's giving off. And, psychics have done that for a very long time when they'll hold somebody like a piece of jewelry, because the energy from the person who wore that is imprinted on that item. And it's much the same as we can do from a certain perspective. There's an element of psychometry when a medium goes into a house and they go, okay, I'm detecting energy in this room. It's much the same concept. So it all comes down to understanding about energies, how we work, and that's what I try to teach everybody, is that this isn't some rare thing that, one person in 1,000 can do. Every one of us can do this. It's just we have to be open to learning, and we also have to be prepared to learn the science side of it to understand that it's not, this mystical stuff.
Right. Well, that brings me, that kind of touches on what I firmly believe in, what I'm an advocate for, strongly push is my para-unity belief. Whether you're a skeptic, whether you're into filmmaking, author, psychic medium, however you are involved in the paranormal world, you're under the same umbrella. And that mutual respect should be, embraced. And skeptical people are usually the ones that firmly only believe, well, science has got to have a hand in this. And science does have a hand in it. And at the same respect, they're involved. They're just refusing to believe it, but that they're under the same umbrella that we are.
I think that,
Go ahead.
Sorry, I think the way to look at it is this. There's that old expression, if a tree falls in the forest, nobody's there to hear it. Did it make a sound? And so it's the same thing when bringing science into, the paranormal investigations. My goal with Spirit, I coined the phrase, was that I want to make the paranormal normal. Because when I say to people, when I do my public speaking presentations, I'll say, do you understand what the true definition of paranormal is? And people will go, ghosts, Bigfoot. And I go, no, those are examples of paranormal. Paranormal, the definition is outside normal scientific knowledge or experience. Mm-hmm. So we have to make that normal by understanding it. And to do that, we need to work in tandem, and we have to work towards the same objective. And that's the skeptics, the believers. I love skeptics. I really do, because the skeptics are the ones that keep it real.
Right. Exactly. They keep us searching. And I formed the group PARA, and that's Para-Unity Association for Researchers of America, with emphasis on researchers. We're all searching. Now, optimistically, one day we would get to a point where everything is proof. We would find the proof. We would have the proof. On some respects or areas, I do believe we have the proof. I just think that there's those that are unwilling to accept it or embrace it. But, you're always going to have the skeptics. You're always going to have the non-believers, or that's not possible, because they only believe in science. But science is what helps us, actually, in some aspects. The investigative teams, where do they think the spirit boxes come from? Where do they think all these things come from? Science. Science builds these contraptions for us so that we can go out and find the spirits, or hear them, or record them beyond the ear, beyond beyond what we can see. So, it's things like that they need to embrace and think about. On your level, I just think it's amazing to be able to, tap into that world of psychic reading, to be able to understand or hold an object in your hand and feel that energy. When you do your investigations, touch on you said earlier when we were talking that it's not like a public affair.
I take it very seriously. It's to me, one of the issues that I have is that because it's not been accepted as the norm yet, because it hasn't fully proven, there's still this curiosity level. And so when clients will say to me, can I bring over, my friends and family, can they come and watch? I tell them flat out, absolutely not. We actually tell people that if you've got pets in the house, if you can remove them, take them over to the friends or put them out in the car or whatever for a couple hours at night so we can do our work. We say we only like to have the client and maybe one other person just for their own self of sense of security, that they have somebody they know that's there. And the reason for that is this, is that, if you had, a plumber coming into your house, you're not going to say, hey, I want to bring my friends and family over, or a pest control guy. It makes it too much of a sideshow. And I'm there to do a serious task that my team and I firmly believe, what we do is helpful. And I don't need the distractions of an audience watching and trying to participate or whatever. So I take it seriously, and that's probably the easiest way to say it, is that it's not for entertainment purposes. And it is the same thing for when I'm doing readings. And what I tell people is oftentimes they'll want to bring somebody with them for a reading. And I say, look, in an ideal circumstance, I don't want a second person sitting in the room, because I can pick up their energy as well. And what can happen is that I'm actually going to blend their reading with your reading, and it's confusing because everything's coming through. So there's set sort of protocols that we're pretty staunch that we won't move off of.
Okay. When did you start or feel that you had something out of the normal, a gift out of the normal?
That would have been that. It started when I was a child. The thing, what you'll find is with psychics, is that basically it tends to run in family lines, and so for me, I can trace it back to my mom, to my mom's sisters, to my mom's mother. They all had ability. And for me, the very first thing that happened, I would have been probably about 10 years old. And I'd just come home from elementary school, and we lived in a duplex, and we lived on one side of it, my family and I, and on the other side was my aunt and uncle. And I remember my sister had just gone into the hospital local for gum surgery on her mouth. And I'd been home about 20 minutes and the phone rang, and it was the hospital, and all of a sudden I hear my mother go into hysterics. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And I come running out of my bedroom. My mom was hysterically crying, and my aunt heard the commotion, came running over, what's the matter? And the hospital, the doctor that called said, you need to get to the hospital right away. There's been complications. We don't think your daughter's going to survive the day. And we're like, oh my God, this is supposed to be like gum surgery. This wasn't like open heart or something. And my father worked, downtown, which was, about a 40-minute drive. And so my mom knew how to drive, but was too hysterical to drive. My aunt didn't know how to drive. And so we landed up having to get into a cab. And I can remember getting into the cab in the sense of being like a storm, like a hurricane, and all this commotion going on, and it was just chaos. And all of a sudden, we'd been in the cab about 5 minutes, and this calm came over me, and it was just instant, flat calm. And I heard a voice, and the voice said to me, Rick, tell your mother, Barbara, who's my sister, tell your mom that Barb is fine, and when you get to the hospital, she'll be sitting up in bed smiling. There's nothing wrong with her. And I'm like, okay. And so I can remember sitting in the back seat of the cab with my mom, and I went, Mommy, I just spoke to God. And so credibility factor went out the window at that moment. But I said, this is what he told me, is Barbara's fine. You get to the hospital, she'll be sitting up bed smiling, nothing wrong with her. And I can remember my mom kind of chastised me and just told me, be quiet, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, okay. And we continued the drive to the hospital. She got out and ran in, and she was in hysterics. She was crying. And this doctor saw her and said, what's the matter? She goes, I just got called to come down. My daughter just had gum surgery. They're not expecting her to live. And he goes, well, what's the name? And he looks up the name. He goes, well, I just checked on her. He said, come with me. And he took her into the room. And there was my sister sitting up in bed, smiling, nothing wrong with her. And as it turned out, the doctor that had called was an alcoholic and was drunk on the job. So, an amazing experience. And I can remember my mom, she literally collapsed right there. It was just like, oh my God, everything that I told her was right. And to this very day, my mom just actually last week turned 86, and we still talk about that. She goes, I still am blown away at how that message came through for you. And since then, obviously I've trained, and so my abilities become much more enhanced on how I tap into things now.
Wow. That's, my mother is 77 years old, and my grandfather passed when I was 11. And I remember I came home from school, and what I used to do is ride the bus to the bank where my mother worked. And I would walk and go into the bank, and she would get off work, and we would walk to the car. At the corner, after she got off work, we were standing. And this is after, of course, my grandfather had passed, and I saw him drive by in his red truck and wave. I said nothing, because if I thought if I said something that maybe you're crazy, or don't think that, or so I never said a word. I always just kept that picture in my mind, because it was soothing to me. Because
right.
I loved my grandfather. We were close, and he passed in his sleep. And my mother was the one to find him. And so that secret stayed with me until this past Christmas. My mother was, she just turned 76, or 77, excuse me. And we were sitting there on the bed, and I said, do you remember after Grandpa passed, we were walking across the street, and she said, yeah, I remember I saw him pass in his red truck and waving at me. She said, I never told you about that because I thought you would think I was crazy. And she'd never shared that, and I'd never shared that. And all that time had passed. She's 77. Back then, she was in her late 40s, because she had me when she was like 38 and then turned 39 10 days later.
Right.
So we had the same experience without saying a word from 11 to 37. So that was how many years passed. So I said, you're kidding me, because we just said it at the same time. I also have an EVP where he calls out in Maria, which is her name, but he said Maria Elena. And I didn't quite understand why he was calling that out when I was doing the EVP session. And then she came and stayed for Christmas. And I said, what does Elena have to do with anything? Because that's not her middle name. And she said that they had a sister that passed when she was 6 months old, and my grandfather started calling her Maria Elena because he was so distraught over her passing at 6 months. She had tuberculosis, and I think it's encephalitis, where her brain was swollen.
Right.
So she died from that. So it was just a really strange, it was like, because he was closest to my mother. He was sad about his passing, the passing of his daughter at 6 months. And so he merged the names, and that's what he called her. And so it was just, it was very touching, and it explained why he said that. I'm her daughter. She was, visiting, and I still have the EVP, and I cherish it because it also says, like, comforting, it's okay.
Right.
Kind of thing. And that's the feeling I get from it.
Well, the thing is that I've experienced far too many things, as a medium and also doing the investigations. Because I work cold, because I don't have any foreknowledge of anything. When a client comes to see me for a reading, I don't know who they are. They've looked me up off the internet or, off of an ad on Craigslist or whatever the case may be. So I know zero about the client when they come here. And when you bring details through that, are specific to a person that's connected to that's on the other side, it's too, it's impossible. If there wasn't something to it, it's impossible, right? I mean, I had one woman sitting across from me who, I started the reading and I said, look, I've got, and I'll use a different name, but I said, does the last name Smith mean anything to you? And she goes, yes. And I said, okay. And I started going into the reading and I said, okay, I've got her. I said, it's your aunt who's passed on the other side, and her name is Jane. So Jane Smith. And the woman looks at me like, how did you know that? Right? I mean, to get a first and last name, that's beyond hitting a bullseye. And how would you know that from a complete stranger? And the name, it wasn't Jane Smith. It was a much different name than that. And one of the things that I want to put out there for people to know as well, because I was raised in a Christian household. And I can remember as a kid going to various types of Christian-based churches. My mom was always looking for that right fit. And, we went to Full Gospel. We went to Mennonite. I was baptized at 16 Southern Baptist.
Me too.
No, very serious. But by no means was my household, what you would call a strict religious household. It wasn't like that at all in our home. We had our faith and our beliefs, but that was really where it came in. And I can remember I would have been about 16 when I got baptized, and talking to my pastor, and we were talking about animals because I think it was somebody I knew that I think it might have been my brother or whatever. Somebody's dog died. And I said to the pastor, I said, animals have souls too, right? And he goes, no, when they die, they just die. And I was crushed. I was really saddened by it. I was like, seriously? And then I started questioning things. I'm going, well, what makes us so special that as a human, we're the only thing that's entitled to have a spirit? And I'm going to tell you, I've done many, many sessions where clients, dogs, pets of various natures have come through. I've described what the dog looks like. I've given the dog's name, and basically they come through with messages for their owners as well, and even people who had neighbor dogs. I had a reading I did for a woman back a few months back, and it was the neighbor's dog that came through in her reading. And I described the behavior of the dog. I described what the dog looked like, and it was spot on the money. And I said, look, the dog's just saying that they're still present. They're still, with you and wanting to say hi. And so I want people to know that just because we're human doesn't mean we're the only ones who can come through in a psychic reading and that have souls that go on. Animals are amazing creatures.
Yes, they are. I love my fur baby.
Yeah, they mean a lot to me, animals, and it's I have some very wonderful friends on Facebook that are animal advocates and what have you. The one thing that I did do on Facebook is I had to sort of tell people is that I don't want to see things of abuse. There's too many things on Facebook that I don't like, where people are showing videos of a child being abused or an animal being abused, and to me it just guts me when I see that, and it takes me back to my days of being in policing, where I want to arrest that person and make the change. And what I've said is that rather than repeatedly victimizing the person or that animal by that video being seen, why don't we just capture the image of the person and do a brief description of what they did if you're looking for that person to be brought to justice? I cannot handle watching these videos and seeing the abuses to animals and that. It's just...
Oh, no, me either. I'm on the same exact page. I'm a huge, like my baby is my cat is adoptee from the local SPCA. Or she just needed a home, and she's beautiful. And I got her when she was 4 weeks old or 6 weeks old. And now I've had her for over a year, a little over a year. And I love her. I mean, I feel like I can talk to her. People think I can't, but she responds. I meow, and she meows back, or she'll make a gesture. She knows. She responds every time I do something. She comes to me in the morning at 6 o'clock on the dot every morning because that's feeding time, and she just looks at me, and if I don't pay attention, she'll jump up on the bed and meow in my face. And with dogs, you cannot tell me they do not have a spirit within them because they are loyal creatures. And some of them, I mean, are so extremely smart. I mean, you cannot tell me that they don't love their owners the way they run to them and jump on them and embrace them when they come home. There's a love there. So,
well, I saw my sister's dog yesterday, and I've always been very close to this dog. And I hadn't seen the dog for probably 8 months or more, and the dog just went crazy, right? It recognized me.
Yeah.
It knew who I was. It went nuts. It wasn't doing that to every stranger that walked by. It was like, hey, how are you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time, right? So we have to give animals more credit because they're very intuitive creatures, and they're not tainted. The one thing I'll tell you, and this is where we have to get to as a species, is do you ever listen to Dr. Wayne Dyer?
No, I don't think I have.
Amazing man. He does a lot of stuff on the PBS channels. His specials. And he is, I'm probably the one person who I don't listen to a lot of metaphysical speakers and stuff. I just do my own thing. And it's not judgment or whatever, I just do my own thing. And but this man has really made an impression on me, and I relay his stuff to my clients. And there's one thing that he talks about, and he talks about ego. And, ego is oneself, and not to be confused with arrogance, right? It's you're who you are, it's your ego. And he said when we work with ego, we are no longer connected to spirit. We're now only connected to ourself. Mm-hmm. And he uses the acronym that ego, EGO, stands for edging God out. It's not meant to be a religious thing. It's meant to be more spiritual as that. And I tell people that when I do my readings for people, I don't filter. So there may be times where I say stuff to you and you're going to go, yeah, I don't get it. You know what? You might not ever get it, but you might even get it 6 hours from now, 6 weeks from now. It'll make sense. If I sit here and I filter it, that's ego working because I'm trying to make a message that you're going to understand, and I'm working from the perspective of, hey, I want to be right. I want to be doing a good reading for you. I have to put that to the side and remove that filter so that it strictly comes from spirit, and I just go, okay, this is a crazy message, but here it is. And animals don't work with ego. They're very intuitive. They know who they like. They know who they don't like. They can tell. I mean, even there's been cases where they show certain animals can smell cancer and various things. They're very intuitive creatures, right? So it's one thing that I tell people is that remove ego and start working with an unfiltered message. And that's where intuition comes in. And as I say to people, that little butterfly you get in your diaphragm when you're making a decision, should I buy that new car, or should I go, to the store, or what should it be? And you get that butterfly, it just doesn't feel right. Listen to that, because it bats 99% right. And what happens is that when we don't listen to that, we're now working from ego, and we're not taking that message to heart.
All right. I agree with you. I mean, there's going to be those out there that, they're skeptics. They're going to say, question everything. No, that's silly for animals to have a spirit and have souls. But you just can't tell me that. I mean, they have dogs that do just about everything. I mean, help the blind. They do everything. They're so connected to the people in their lives that it shows, and you just see that, and it touches your heart. I mean, there's so many videos of the great things that dogs do and how they lead people, they show their affection. I've seen dogs that get so overwhelmed with excitement when they see one of the soldiers that have gone overseas come back home. Yep. That they just literally sounds like they're crying. And, I mean, it just tugs at your heart because you know that they know who that person is and they've missed them. And that that shows caring, that shows heartfelt love, I mean, true love for that person. And loyalty, all those emotions are encased in that crying and embracing, excitement when they walk through the door. And it just, there's one video out there of a soldier that comes home and this dog that just cries and jumps on him, and it's a big dog, and it's just amazing. And it made me cry. There's no way you can watch that and not cry. So,
you know, and the thing that I say to skeptics is this, is that being skeptical is healthy, okay?
Yeah.
It's to not take things just at face value. I totally commend that. Where there's a difference between a skeptic and a person who's just a straight up non-believer, and that can apply to anything. I mean, you could sit there and say, I don't believe in blue whales. I've never seen one in person. They don't exist. I've never seen one in person. Okay, well, have you been out in the ocean to see one? No. Okay, so then we now have to say, if you haven't been in the proper setting to see that, then you're not going to. And if you come at the psychic realm or the spirit realm, whatever you want to call it, whatever coin you want to throw on there, you're not going to see it if you come in closed. That's why it's really important when we do the development circles, there's body language that we have to employ. You don't sit with your legs crossed. You don't sit with your arms crossed. When you're doing a reading for somebody, the client isn't sitting across from you with their legs crossed, because that's closed body language, and it's preventing flow of energy. And so, as I say to all skeptics listening, assess to yourself, are you disbelieving because it hasn't been proven, or are you disbelieving because you don't want to have to deal with your own mortality? Because that's really what I think it comes down to, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and God bless him, really nice guy. I like him a lot. Older fellow, and his joke to me, if he says it once, he probably says it to me 6 times during my visits with him every time, is, can you give me the lottery numbers for Saturday? And I said, it doesn't work that way. And the reason it doesn't work that way isn't because I'm a fraud or it's not factual what happens here. Is that my destiny to win the lottery? Is it your destiny, Shaunie, to win the lottery, to ask me for the lottery numbers and me to give those to you? So people don't understand that. They don't take that all into consideration, and it just doesn't work that way. It's not all about immediate self-gain, because if it was that way, don't you think that anybody who had psychic abilities would be winning every single lottery, every single contest for a free car or a trip to Hawaii or whatever? So it's if you disbelieve so vehemently, you're obviously closed to it, so you're not going to experience it, and you have to remove some of that. And that's where it's no different than a scientist has to be objective. They have to be prepared to look at, okay, if the results in this experiment are A, I can accept that. If it's B, I can accept that too.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. I know that you just, basically, you have to leave yourself open to the possibility. And that brings me back to what I was saying. And we're all under the same umbrella. We've got to respect everyone's opinion, and the mutual respect is what makes us part of unity. the unity part is what I need to emphasize, and the respect is what I want to emphasize. I respect everyone, the skeptics, because they help us, push us, and I respect those that don't believe in the fact that I believe in positivity and going forth with something so large, that I believe in it so adamantly that I'm willing to preach about it. I'm going to church with it. I'm going to take you to church. I'm just that way. That's how I'm built now. I'm built in that respect that I want to get your name out there, promote you, help people that deserve the attention and the showcasing of their ability, and also in their teams. And everyone had to start at day one and build themselves. All the teams, I don't care if they're a day old or 100 years old, they had to start somewhere with the Spirit Box and Old House and start from day one, and then somebody gave them a chance to investigate more, and they built their team, and then their team was asked to speak. And then after one speaking engagement, there became two, and then so on and so forth. And then once they did a great investigation at a location, it was either on YouTube or televised somewhere, and then they were then born. They're born, but they're still human. And I believe that they're all on the same level. They should have just as much respect for the small team that's starting out where they once did as the ones that are televised. You're on television, great. I've been on television. Not for paranormal, for singing long ago, about 10 years ago. But it's not who you are that you are on television. It's who you are as a human being. And that's how I believe, and that's how I push my show. The delicious things in paranormal are things we want to hear about, the things that are appealing, exciting, wondrous, that draw us in. And the suspicious things are things that you question, things that you want to... Absolutely. I mean, it's all about the paranormal world and even beyond it. And I was so on the same page with you. Paranormal is beyond the normal. That's what the definition is. It's beyond the normal. Let's get into that. That's what the show is about, Paralicious. Let's take everything suspicious, delicious, conspicuous, everything that's you can.
If it ends in IOUS, we want it. Here's the thing that I'll tell you is this, and you're really very accurate with the aspect about the small teams, big teams, TV show teams, whatever. The thing to keep in perspective here is that how many scientific discoveries have been done by amateur astronomers with backyard telescopes? Tons of discoveries have happened from just a one-man show in his backyard with a good scope, looking at the night sky, and found something and went, hey, what about this? And so this is where even the smallest of teams, even a one-man person team can make the discovery that all of a sudden is that first domino to tip that tips all the rest, and then we get to where we want to get to for the answers. So it's really important that we don't minimize, any of that. And what I say to teams is, look, stop being in competition with each other. Because I've seen it even, on Facebook, and I've seen it locally here, where teams are vying for these venues to get in there to be the team to go in and do an investigation. And it's like, great. I'm happy for you. You got into, XYZ location. However, at the end of it all, we're supposed to be pushing for the same end result, and that's to try and come up with answers as to what's really going on here. And so friendly competition is fine, but when it turns into this sniping and whatever else, it's just so not worth it. And it's so high school. I don't have the time for it. We do our thing. We're moving with the group that's trying to further the advances of discovery. And the thing that I'll tell you as well is that, one of the reasons why I named the team Spirit, for paranormal, is because it can encompass everything. It can encompass, Sasquatch. It can encompass UFOs. It can encompass all kinds of different things. And all of that I'm very interested in. I've been interested in, astronomy since I was a little kid. I look to the stars all the time going, it's amazing. But the thing is that I had a case locally come to me a few months back that involves, and it sounds to the average person probably really crazy, but alien visitation. And all the clues are there that go, this really points to, this is what that kind of phenomena is. When I went to the location, I'm getting 0 on a psychic level. Like, it felt very neutral to me. I wasn't picking up like this is a spirit. But we were getting huge EMF readings and K2 readings, and even outside, we were getting all these different readings and stuff, and we're going, okay, this just doesn't make sense. Witness testimonials from the parents and the children, and the children were never relayed the information from the parents because they didn't want to scare the kids. And the one child saw the very same thing as the parents. Even drew me a picture, and I've interviewed the child. And what I had to do is I go, okay, this is outside of my wheelhouse. This isn't something that I have a lot of knowledge or experience about. I have to contact somebody who does. And so guess what? I went onto Facebook, and through my community of friends, I was linked up with Paul Reno back east, who then connected me to Kathleen Martin. And Kathy Martin, who is the niece of Betty Hill, of the Betty Hill and Barney Hill case back in 1961, alien abduction case in the U.S., gave me some great tips on what to do and what we need to do. So I'm never going to say that I have all the answers. I'm always prepared to turn to another specialist in the field, or even people in my own field, and go, what do you think about this? Because we have to be open to other people's opinions, because that's when we're thinking outside the box.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. Could not have said it better myself. Well, Rick, we're coming to the end of the hour here, but I want to thank you so much. And guys, if you haven't checked him out on Facebook, go to Rick Peterson. He's located out of Surrey, British Columbia. Great guy, super personality, super individual. I enjoy talking with him. He's always been a super supporter of me and in my endeavors on Facebook and what I try to push in as far as the paranormal field and para-unity. And also, guys, don't you have a website, Rick?
Yes, yeah, I have the one for our paranormal investigations is www.SPIRITBC, that's B as in Bravo, C as in Charlie, .ca, and then my psychic readings is psychicreadingsbyrichard.com, so you can check it out. Okay, guys, check those out. Thank you for listening to the Perilicious Dish Hour with Shaunie Deidre. Let's dish next week. See you. Bye-bye.